This week we're continuing the story of Joseph, and now he's finally going to be reunited with his father and his full family in chapters 45 and 46. It's going to be a happy reunion, even though it's been convoluted throughout much of this time. In chapter 45, we find that Joseph finally makes himself known to his brothers in verse 1 and has a very emotional reunion with them in verse 2. And I'll get back to verses 5 to 8 in just a few moments, but nevertheless, he now sends them back. He says, go get your father, get your stuff, come on back, bring all your family. We'll give you the land of Goshen, which is prime real estate in Egypt, and your whole family can stay there. They can be preserved during this famine, and we'll take care of you, and we'll be united as a family. So that's a beautiful picture we have here of that. When the boys went back finally with Joseph back to Jacob, Jacob is verse 26 of chapter 45. He is stunned. It says he was stunned and he did not believe them. Now remember, these are the same boys that told him 22 years ago that Joseph was dead. And they brought back his beautiful robe, all covered in blood and ripped up. Same boys who are now saying, well, no, we know God, Jacob, our brother is alive. He's the number 2 man in Egypt, and we didn't tell you the truth for 2 decades, but here it is. So no wonder he did not believe them. But ultimately, apparently, they won him over, and he is thrilled with what is going on. He says in verse 28, it is enough. My son Joseph is still alive, and I will go and see him before I die. Now, what a happy day for Jacob. His family is going to be rescued from a famine they could not control. They're united together with all of them once again. The brothers are back out of jail from Egypt, and they're going to go to Egypt to be with Joseph. And Joseph is alive and well, and he didn't know that until now. What a marvelous turn of events for Jacob. In chapter 46, we find that the Lord is telling him to definitely go. He says, so Israel set out with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and says, Jacob, Jacob. And he says, here I am. And he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you up again, and Joseph will close your eyes. What a promise God gives Jacob as he meets with him at this time. So Jacob and his family goes back down to goes down to Egypt, and there is this reuniting. In the middle of chapter 46, we have the names of the brothers and their families and so forth. And what we do find here, though, is that God is promising them in verse 3 that he will make of them a great nation. Right now, they're not a great nation. They're only a family. It says in verse 26 and 27, they're a family of 70 males. So about 70 men that are comprising the family of Jacob at this point. There are women that are not included in that number, but 70 men, and that's it. That's a family. It's a large family. It's a clan, but it's certainly not a nation. But God is promising to make of them now a great nation, the nation that would be later on called Israel after Jacob's name that God changed it to. Now, with all that said, we go back to chapter 45 and verses 5 to 7. This is the heart of the story here. What we're finding here is all these events, all these things that have been taking place are not happenstance. They're being taken from God's perspective here. God is showing us the big picture, what God was up to. God has been orchestrating all of this behind the scenes, unknown to anybody else, to preserve his people, preserve this remnant of people. And we find that very clearly in verse 5 of chapter 45. Joseph says to his brothers, now do not be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land for 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which it will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Now, therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. Joseph sees that God's hand has been in all of this all along. He is not bitter. He's not angry. God has had a plan, and he's brought the boys here. What a picture. God God's plan was unknown to even Joseph for decades, at least 2 decades. But now it's obvious what God was up to. The big picture is the preserving of the people of the covenant, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the people of the covenant, that they would not die in this famine, that they would be preserved. This is God's means of doing so. This whole thing concerning Joseph and all that he's doing in Egypt is all ultimately about God preserving his people. Nobody knew that. We only know it because we have the revelation of God to tell us so. That should give us great hope and confidence in the hand of God as we wait on him sometimes when we don't know what the next step is. We can wait on him, we can hope in him, we can trust in him. This narrative shows us that.